Hello and welcome back to round 27 of Inside the Clinch. My name is John, and as always, I'm joined by my lifelong friend Eric. Eric, I would ask you how you're doing today, but I already did in our last podcast, which we just recorded. So, how's your day going since we recorded that last podcast?
So far, so good. Not much has changed, to be honest. We just kind of decided to split this up into two different segments. We had a few interesting fights this past week, so we kind of had our last episode focused on that. And here we're just going to give you some quick news updates in the world of MMA.
Yeah,
So
so so you want to start us off with what the legend Kamaru Usman had to say about the notorious Conor McGregor?
yeah, so Usman had some interesting words to say. So he says that Conor McGregor is just another fighter. He says that he's not the dominant, motivated Conor that he was when he first entered the UFC. He said that Conor was, intimidating to anyone in any weight class just by the motivation and the aura. But nowadays, Conor is just another fighter. There's nothing really impressive about him, and he's just falling in with the rest of them.
I mean, I have one thing to say to that, and that's facts.
That
Because
ass.
like at one point, Conor McGregor did have. I mean, he still does have this aura about him. He's always gonna draw the fans in. He has a huge following. It's Conor McGregor at the end of the day. But like at one point, Conor McGregor was a very dominant fighter, a two-time, held two belts in the UFC at the same time. I believe one of the first people to do it.
Double champ,
Uh,
hell yeah.
One of the first double champ. He was on a roll for a while, but recently, after the money, after the fame, he's been on the skid. He lost to Khabib. He lost to Dustin Poirier. He beat an old Cowboy Cerrone, which was you couldn't really tell much from that fight. So I agree with Kamaru Usman that Conor McGregor, from what we're seeing recently, he does look like an average fighter at this point in his career.
I agree. Nothing really impressive about Connor these days. Like you said, he hasn't been who he was. I think this test with Poirier that he has coming up, the trilogy fight, is going to be a make it or break it thing for his career. I personally think that, like, I agree that he's off his peak. He's not the same guy he used to be. But I do believe that if he focuses in this camp, I do think that he should be able to beat Dustin Poirier. If he can't, I think that's going to be it for him for a while. He's going to have to go down the rankings. He's still going to be a big money draw and a big name because that's just who he is. But as a fighter, I mean, I'm not impressed with him. There's already a lot of fighters I think that would easily beat Conor McGregor in both lightweight and welterweight. I don't know. I get Conor's has all the money. Doesn't have necessarily the motivation anymore. I get it. But, this isn't a sport like golf where you can just, kind of be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like, you can get seriously hurt if you're not, all in this game.
Yeah, so regarding this Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier trilogy, I've been asking a lot of people how they see the third fight going, and one of the people I asked was you, and you think that Conor McGregor is gonna win the third time around, and most of the people that I'm talking to think that Conor McGregor is gonna win, and this is why I wanted to bring it up in this podcast. I asked you, like, let's talk about this. I know the fight is a little bit more than a month away, but like I feel this is important to discuss. I just want to know why the fans, the audience, thinks that Conor McGregor is going to win after we just saw the dominant performance that Dustin Poirier had. Like, what evidence shows that Conor McGregor is going to come out differently this time?
So I can tell you my opinion. I know a lot of people just pick Conor because it could be Conor versus Godzilla, and people are still going to say Conor. You know what I mean? But I think Conor, first of all, he almost won that first fight. A lot of people are acting like that first round never happened. Conor almost finished Dustin Poirier in the first round.
I don't
Hold
think
on.
he. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Dustin Poirier, he made whatever corrections he needed to do. He continued to work, the front leg, like that was his game plan, and he did what he had to do to get his hand raised, not taking any away from Poirier. But I feel like to a degree, Conor came in cocky, saying, "I already beat you. I can do this again," and he didn't. I feel like didn't take it as seriously as someone like Khabib, for example, or someone that like Nate Diaz. Like, I feel like that it was a different motivation for
That's
that.
not what he was saying prior to the fight. Prior to the fight, he was like, "Yes." I mean, I can't lose accent, but he was saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna come in the best shape of my life. Like I'm
They all
putting
say
everything into
that,
this."
bro. Find me one promo when a fighter doesn't say that. Every fighter is the best shape of their life, the best camp of their life.
Yeah,
Like,
and regarding what you said about Conor McGregor almost taking out Dustin Poirier in the first round, I have to disagree with that because Dustin Poirier is known to fight in brawls. Like he gets hit, he looks like he's out, but like he comes back later in the fight. He just the type of fighter that he is. So I don't necessarily agree that Conor McGregor almost took him out. I feel like Conor McGregor did land some good shots
I think he
that
got a
hurt
knockdown.
Dustin.
No, I think Conor got a knockdown, didn't he? I could be
No,
wrong.
I don't think he knocked him down. He hurt him. That's for sure. He did hurt him, but I don't think that he almost ended the fight. And just that performance, you saw there was a difference in Conor McGregor's stance and the way Poirier was able to freaking knock him out. And like after seeing that and still questioning Dustin Poirier,
But
I'm just confused. And I'm just trying to digest this with
exactly,
you
you said
because
you see Conor was in a different stance. I feel like if Conor goes back to his square one, if he goes back to the Conor that wanted the belt, the Conor that wanted to be double champ, the Conor that wanted the big name, that wanted the pay-per-view spots and everything, karate style, whatever, switching left to right, moving light on his feet like he did before, I think that Conor beats Poirier again 100%. Now the question is whether or not that Conor McGregor will step into the octagon, and that is what I think it comes down to.
I believe that Conor was a younger Conor. That's number one.
For sure.
He was a hungrier Conor because he didn't have anything. Now he has everything. And I know he could say all the stuff of like, I'm training hard, I'm putting all my work in, but like it's different now because he already accomplished. As we said, he was a double champ. He held the belt. He was a double UFC champ. He just accomplished so much in UFC. He fought Mayweather. He just has so much money. So like, what's gonna give him the hunger this time around is what I'm a little bit confused about.
I mean, at this point, I think it's his ego, and I think it's his fighting career. Because, like I said, if he loses this one, I don't know how the rest of his fighting career goes. I mean, Poirier's, he's not a bum. He's a, big, good, great athlete. He was a former interim champ, but I think
He's not
one
a
more
bum at
loss.
all. I think
No, I'm just saying one more loss for Conor, and that's it. I think for a while, dude, he's been losing a lot.
I agree that he's gonna definitely tarnish his name, but like people are always gonna want to fight Conor McGregor, and that's just his decision of whether he wants to continue fighting. Like, is it really worth it at this point? Like, what else do you want to do? You want to keep coming back and getting embarrassed and like kind of ruining your legacy? Because if like 2-3 years ago Conor McGregor was just like huge, everyone in MMA knew how big Conor McGregor was, how good of a fighter he was, but now I feel like he's kind of ruining his name, you know?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if he's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I say leave and close the door behind you. But if he still wants to be in the game, I think, like I said, for everyone else, you need to be fully invested in this game.
I think it's time for people to fucking start putting respect on Dustin Poirier's name, bro. He beat some tough competition. I know he lost to Khabib, but that's Khabib. That's a different level. He beat Max Holloway, bro. He beat Calvin Kattar. He beat big, huge names in the division. So like, I feel like it's time to give him the credit. You know, he's good. He's really good.
Yeah, he is. I don't know. I think Conor's striking is a lot more refined. I don't know what I saw in that first round in their second fight. I saw Conor almost win. Now I'm not taking, like I said, I'm not taking any away from Poirier. Great game plan, and he did exactly what he had to do, and that was great. But I think if Conor puts himself back together, fixes the holes that he had in that first and finishes the second, and finishes the holes that he had in the second fight, I think he can get it done. I don't know. Like I said, a lot of people are just going to say Conor because they'll say Conor no matter who. I think from what I saw in that first fight, he had it's not like it was a complete one-side dominant fight. I think Conor has a chance of beating him, and if he can make the corrections that he needs, I think he can get his hand raised.
Do you think one of the corrections that he needs to make is to be more aggressive prior to the fight?
No, because he's going to gas out. I mean, we've seen that with
Conor. No, not in terms of actually, not physically. Like, you know how he is, the arrogant Conor McGregor with like all the shit that he says to his opponents in the press conferences. You know, it's hilarious, but like it's the Conor McGregor that we know, and this nice Conor McGregor I don't know. I feel like he's trying to find himself again, and just not working out for him.
I just, like you said, I don't think he cares as much anymore. Like, what more does he need? He has all the money, he has all the fame. Like, it's his ego. I think at this point he's just cuddling his ego. You know what I mean?
But now he does have some. Prior to this fight, he didn't really have anything against Dustin Poirier. Now they do have some beef again with regarding the charity of how Conor McGregor didn't donate to his charity, and then he donated to another charity. But then Dustin Poirier said it's a win because charity wins or all that stuff. But I don't know, man. It's an exciting fight, but as I said, I just don't see where the evidence is that Conor McGregor is going to win the third fight. But we'll see.
We'll see what happens. But speaking of Conor boxing, going back to boxing, Oscar DeLaHoya has been talking shit to Dana. He called Dana White a little bitch for not allowing GSP to box him. So Oscar De La Hoya a couple of months ago announced that he's going to be making his return to boxing. I don't know about you, but the Oscar De La Hoya that I saw on that Triller broadcast for the Jake Paul fight, that dude did not sound like he was in any shape to get back into fighting. I don't think that's a great idea.
First of all, Oscar De La Hoya is old as hell, and yeah, that night he was drunk as hell,
If
and
not
he,
more.
yeah, if he was not on cocaine, which he's known for doing, I don't know, man. Like with the whole GSP thing, I understand where Dana White is coming from. GSP has been the face of the UFC for God knows how long, and people consider him the GOAT. And if he goes out there and he loses to a once professional boxer, that's gonna tarnish the MMA name a little bit more than, you know what I'm
Especially
saying?
someone like GSP. It's not like a Ben Askren. It's the legend. It's our GOAT. You know what I mean? One of our greatest of all time.
Exactly. GSP has no business being in there, in my opinion. Um, Fuck Oscar De La Hoya. He's a fucking clown. Like, look at him in Triller, like
Yeah.
on live television. Like, how do you even do that? I know he said that he wasn't prepared to talk, but like,
Dude,
dude,
he
if you're not prepared
was
to
making a
talk, then
fool of
don't
himself.
talk.
Yeah, he was making a fool of himself that entire broadcast, at least in my opinion. Like
He
he was
was
saying really,
trashed. Of
yeah.
course he was. He was trashed out of his mind. You didn't even know where he was.
The guy was, I mean, that was, I have no words for that. It was, like I said, he does not sound like he's even in shape to be in the gym or anything. How intoxicated he sounded, I don't know, man. I think Oscar De La Hoya should just sit in the commentary booth, enjoy his drinks, and stay the hell out of the ring.
Hey, you intoxicated?
You intoxicated? You intoxicated?
If this fight happens, that would be funny. If
Yo,
GSP,
GSP.
if GSP just goes, "Hey, you intoxicated?"
That would be fucking hilarious.
But yeah, honestly, man, I'm not dying to see the fight. If the fight were to happen, obviously you and I both are gonna tune in. But like, I don't want to see him lose. I don't want
Look,
to see
Dana
him lose.
White.
It's not his sport.
Look, Dana White went out and said he was asked that at a press conference, and he said those idiots keep hitting me up. Like I don't want anything to do with them. Like don't worry about what I'm doing. Go do what you're doing. He's constantly recently been saying that there is a market for the things that they're doing. It's kind of the celebrity boxing, whatever you want to call it. That's not what Dana does. Thankfully, that is not what Dana does. He gives us the real fights, the real matchups. Like you said, there is a market for that. People, similar to WWE. I would say it's a cross between maybe WWE and MMA, but there's a market for that. But Dana doesn't want anything to do with that. He doesn't want to lend his fighters out, to tarnish their names and their legacies and the legacy of the UFC. So I agree with Dana. I think everyone is the boxing community is jealous of the hype and attention that the MMA community is getting. I think boxing, you obviously still make more money because there's a lot more promotional value involved, but MMA is, I think, clearly a bigger sport these days. And I think they're trying to steal as much of that limelight as they can by calling out MMA fighters into the boxing ring.
And they're also picking MMA fighters, in my opinion, stylistically. Because if you look at GSP, yeah, he's the GOAT of MMA. But if you look at his fights, like how does he win most of his fights? He goes and he takes his opponents down to the floor. He's not a great striker, and you're gonna put him in with
He has great kicks, but you can't do that. You know what I
can't
mean?
do that. Yeah, he was never known for his stand up. He was known for his wrestling pedigree. So putting him against, I guess, a coked out, old retired Oscar De La Hoya, he was still once the golden boy. He was still once a phenomenal boxer, and I'm sure he still has a lot of those skills. And to see that bum beat George St Pierre, like I'm good. Like go to MMA, fight George St Pierre in MMA, not in boxing. Like we don't need,
or even kickboxing at least. You know what I mean?
we don't
I'd be
need to
down
see
see him
another.
kickbox.
We don't need to see another Ben Askren type fight. Like
I don't
these
think that
matches
fight
are.
would go that way. Let's just put that out there. But Oscar De La Hoya obviously knows the sport of boxing. He knows the scoring, and he can probably, at worst, he can probably outscore
He'll
GSP. I don't think he knocks
he'll
out GSP.
outbox him. I think he'll outbox him easily. Like
Again, because that's his sport. But I feel like
it's
if you
his
put him
sport.
like
Yeah,
kickboxing, somewhere where it's like a little bit of a hybrid between the two, GSP will knock him the fuck out.
I agree. But I want to see boxers come into MMA. Like stop all the bullshit. Like but the fighters are the MMA fighters already did that. It's your turn to come into their house. Like we already saw how that works out. Boxers are obviously gonna be better in boxing, but it's just not a fair fight. And De La Hoya is a loser. So
Facts. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as always, I'm with Dane on this one. Fuck them. They can go do their own shit. I do not like Triller. I said it last time. Um, I think they need to pick between the MMA and the concerts. I get they're doing both to try to get like the fans together and get as many people interested, but I will not be tuning in. I will probably rewatch the event tomorrow or some shit or the day after. You know what I mean? I have no interest in tuning into Triller. I think it's a very disorganized and just I don't want to say bullshit, but I don't like that organization as it is right now.
Yeah, so the fight with Logan Paul and Mayweather, that's not going to be on Triller, so it's going to be on Showtime Sports. And later on, I'm actually going to go after we speak about Paul Felder. They announced the crew of who's going to be announcing the fights, the referees and the commentators, all that. So we'll get into that in a bit.
Yeah. So yeah, let's get into Paul Felder. So Paul Felder is retiring from MMA. He announced it over the broadcast this past weekend on the Font versus Garbrandt card. The guy's had a great career. You know, he never quite made it to the top. He never held the UFC gold. He's made it close. He's beat some great names in the sport, but he's had a very legendary career. You know, he's one of those guys that's taken fights on short notice. Most of his fights, you know, are very interesting. He always puts on a show. He began his MMA career in December 2011, and so he's basically been fighting MMA for 9 years. And he joined the UFC in October of 2014, so about a 6-year UFC career, if we're counting up until November 2020, which is his last fight. Guy's beaten some legends. He's beaten Oliveira, who's the current lightweight champion. He's beaten Barboza, but most importantly, John, he's beaten James Vick,
The legend James Vick,
the
yeah.
legend. So yeah, Paul Felder, congrats on an amazing career. You know, it's unfortunate that he did not get close enough to touch the gold, but you know, like I said, he's been in a lot of exciting fights, a lot of memorable fights, and definitely a memorable career he's had.
Yeah, as you said, he never touched gold, but like one thing that we have to give him credit for is he never signed up for an easy fight. He fought Rafael Dos Anjos, he fought Dan Hooker, Edison Barboza, as you mentioned, James Vick, the legend, Mike Perry, Charles, last person to beat Charles Oliveira. So these fighters are not no scrubs, you know. So he always had fierce competition, and sometimes he won, sometimes he lost. But I feel like he could walk away proud of himself, and he has a great road ahead of him in commentating. I believe he's a great commentator, and I believe that he made a good decision at the right time as well.
Yeah, it was great to see that he made this decision, you know, in between the fights, not like, oh shit, I just got my ass beat, fuck this sport, like I'm retiring. It wasn't like a negative thing like that. It was something that we've heard him say actually over the last few fights where he's saying he's losing that motivation and that fire. He said it at first, he thought it may have been just the people he was fighting, the opponents weren't giving him that drive. But then, you know, after a while, you get tired of getting hit in the head so many times. You know what I mean? You can only get hit so many times before you're sick of it.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say he's glad that he went out on his own terms without taking any serious damage, and he is fortunate enough to have a commentating position with the UFC, so he does have something to fall back on. So he says he loves doing that. He has a podcast as well, I believe. And you know he sounds like he likes this lifestyle more, and you know it's not the same adrenaline pump gig, but I mean it's the next best thing. He's sitting right there front and center for all the biggest events, and I
He's
mean
not going through any injuries, you
yeah,
know.
or weight cut. I mean, if you heard him talk about his last few weight cuts, he said he never wants to cut weight again. And I mean, I'm sure you can agree. I never want to cut weight again either. I'm so glad that part of my life is over.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's a great decision on his part, and I'm proud of him. Proud of it, what he's accomplished in the sport. And actually, when he was announcing this during the break, he what he said was that he entered the sport of MMA to become a champion, and at this time, he no longer sees the path for that. So this was the reason he wants to step down now is because he doesn't really see himself being a champion anymore. And look, he's being realistic with himself. You and I both
Absolutely.
know doesn't have the potential. He's a good fighter. He probably could beat a lot of people, but at this time, I just don't think he has what it takes to beat the best guys in the division. And he understood that. And as we mentioned, he has a bright future in commentating ahead of him.
I completely agree. For him to get the belt now, I feel like he's gonna minimum need 3 or 4 wins in a row if he wants to make it back to the belt. Just with the current rankings in that division and where he is, and just the big names on top, I think he's gonna need 3 or 4 wins minimum. And you know he's getting older, so it's harder to pull off those consecutive wins, especially as you're going up those rankings with those savages. But excellent decision to call it on your own terms. It's always better than being forced to get kicked out or let go, like some of the other fighters we've seen recently. So I'm very happy for him, and this is not the last we're going to see of him. Thankfully, he's going to be on all the broadcasts and a lot of the post-fight and pre-fight shows, and he's still involved with the UFC. So we'll definitely get to see him around. So let's move on to another bit of interesting news. Diego Sanchez has called it quits with his former coach slash mentor slash I don't know lover, whatever the hell you want to call him,
Partner.
Joshua Fabian. Uh, Those two have had a very strange relationship that's been getting a lot of scrutiny over the past, I'd say, year or so, if not more. Diego's pretty much had enough of Joshua. He said he's been taking advantage of him. He's been ruining his personal relations, family relations, professional relations. And when Diego had all this stuff going on a couple of weeks ago, when he got released from the UFC, he stood by Joshua Fabia and said the UFC was wrong. Now he's starting to come out and say that he realized that Joshua's been taking advantage of him.
I think the voices of different fighters and commentators saying all this stuff about all this negative stuff about Joshua Fabia, which has a lot of credit to it because this Joshua Fabia dude is freaking weird. But I feel like he finally understood that Joshua Fabia is not a good mentor. Since he's been with Joshua Fabia, nothing good has happened to him. His game plans are weird. His fighting style is weird. There's nothing that good that comes out of it. And Joshua Fabia ruined his last fight in the UFC. And Dana White did say that he's open to negotiations, possibly giving Diego Sanchez one more fight in the UFC. So maybe that's going to happen. But I'm glad to see Joshua Fabia no longer in the picture. But I do have a feeling that he's still going to be around somewhere, and we're gonna see him around doing weird things with other athletes or MMA fighters. That's just my personal guess.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but I remember DC saying on his podcast a couple of weeks ago that there was another fighter that was basically under Joshua Fabia's arm, also listening to the same crap, and I'm sure getting fed the same bullshit that he was feeding Diego.
Yeah, I actually know exactly what you're referring to, but I too can't remember.
I can't remember the name yet.
Referring to. Anyways,
but there is someone else. Unfortunately, hopefully they come to the realization sooner rather than later. Because I mean, this guy is just bad news, Joshua Fabian, man.
Yeah. Anyways, the world figured out that this guy is a weirdo. I'm glad Diego Sanchez, a legend in the sport, a guy that a true pioneer in the sport, changed the game of MMA. Ultimate Fighter season 1 winner. So I'm glad that he parted ways with this lunatic, and I'm looking forward to what he does in the future in terms of MMA and whatever else he chooses to do.
Yeah. Look, man, I still think Diego should call it quits. I don't think Diego should come back. Maybe for the Cowboy fight, like I said, that fight made sense, but I'm fine if that fight doesn't happen. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think he got his show and win money for that fight that he was supposed to get. So I take that paycheck, reinvest it, go do something else. Look, if the UFC can get him some kind of commentating job or some kind of gig on the broadcast, that'd be cool too. He's been with the UFC from the beginning. You know what I mean?
But he's like, do you want to listen to him talk though? Like, he's not.
Look, the guy's had experience. He's done it all, seen it all, except for
he does have he does have experience. I agree with you, but to have a role like that, you have to know how to speak, and he.
All right, maybe not necessarily on camera, but he could have some other kind of involvement in the
coaching and stuff like that.
Coaching, maybe, yeah, maybe. Look, those guys have knowledge. I'm sure you can put it to use one way or another.
For sure, they have knowledge. Yeah.
Maybe get a job at the Performance Institute as one of the trainers there or some shit. I feel like you could do that.
Maybe get a job at McDonald's or something.
You're such a dick.
All right, so we have a fight announced: Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez, which is booked for July 17th. It's gonna be a fight night, and Max Holloway opens up as a huge favorite. Who do you have in this fight? So I know it's early, but what are your first predictions on this fight?
All aboard the Blessed Express. Choo choo.
Let's go.
Let's go. Come on, baby. You know we always on the Blessed Express. Max Holloway, dude, the guy has not slowed down one bit. Like, he is just a force to reckon with. One of the most dominant UFC fighters. The only 2 fights he lost, he literally lost by a hair. It's not like his performance deteriorated in that fight. The other guy just had a better performance both times on that night. Max Holloway is just a fucking machine. His volume alone is one of the biggest weapons that he has. I'm a huge fan of Max Holloway. Yair Rodriguez, I'm a fan of his fighting style, but over the last year or so, his personality has been a bit, I don't know, I'm not a fan of his personality. He's been a bit of a dick, but I don't know. I think this is going to be predominantly a striking match. I don't think we're going to see it go down to the ground. I think this is going to be definitely fight of the night contender. I hope Holloway wins by KO.
Yeah, I think Max Holloway, as I said, opens up as a huge favorite, and for a reason. People know how good Max Holloway is, especially coming off his last win where he was able to destroy Calvin Kattar. It's gonna be a fun fight. I could see it being a fight of the night contender. But yeah, looking forward to that fight. Also, another fight that was booked: Kevin Lee versus Sean Brady. Finally found Kevin Lee. dude, Sean Brady is no easy competition. He has wins over some notable names in the UFC and outside of the promotion. But Kevin Lee never takes an easy fight, so I'm proud of him, and I hope he puts on a show. But this dude is not. I know a lot of people don't know who Sean Brady is, but he's not an easy match at all.
Yeah, like you said, and you posted earlier this week, Kevin Lee never takes an easy fight for himself. So, if you don't have a reason to love that guy, I mean, there's a solid one right there. He wants to test himself. He wants to fight as high level competition as he can. We have seen some bumps in his career as the last few fights, and still, he's still going for bigger names, better names instead of looking down a little bit to pick his ego back up. He's still going for the top. And look, if you want to be the champion, that's the kind of mindset you have to have. He was injured, so he's coming off an injury. So there were some things holding him back. But as long as he's staying active and not hiding again, look, Kevin Lee has a lot of potential. I think like you and I have both said previously, he's a lot of unseen potential. Like he just needs to get his head right.
And that's so easily said, but it's
of course, yeah.
such a hard thing to do. But I hope he finds himself this fight because, as you said, he does have a lot of potential and definitely has the tools to win. But Sean Brady is no joke at all, and I believe it's going to be an exciting fight.
Yeah, man, I agree.
So I know you're not the biggest fan of Triller, but this fight with Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul is actually going to be on Showtime Sports. So the event is going to be, I'm predicting it's going to be a little bit more professional. They announced the crew of the event, and I just wanted to jot down some of the notable names. So we're going to have Desus Nice and the Kid Mero. Brian Custer is going to be there. Moro Ronaldo, Al Bernstein, Abner Moraes, and the former UFC heavyweight fighter Brendan Schaub is gonna be what's his role gonna be there? He's gonna be roving reporter at the event. So this event looks like it's gonna be a lot more professional than the events that they throw at Triller. So I'm definitely a lot more excited for this. And Floyd Mayweather is gonna knock this dude out, and I'm so excited to see it.
I don't know. I'd rather it be Jake Paul in there rather than Logan Paul. I don't really have anything against Logan Paul. Jake Paul needs to get slapped up though. He's been acting like a little childish bitch lately, so he just needs to.
Yeah, honestly, like I had no respect for Jake Paul, but I listened to his interview with Chael Sonnen, and like the dude is not completely retarded. He's not a stupid kid. He just puts on that show, and it's working for him, dude. He's so famous. He's so rich, and but the time's gonna come. The time's gonna come. I don't know when it's gonna come, but he's gonna get embarrassed, and that's gonna be something special.
I just hope it's soon because I hate these bullshit fights that he's getting. Jake Paul, at least not Logan. Logan Paul's fighting a real boxer, retired or not. Mayweather's fucking boxer.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, that wraps it up for round 27 of Inside the Clinch. Thank you guys. We'll catch you next week.
Peace.